And so if you actually have a real big bit of advice I would as well is just don't get focused on your one discipline.
Yeah.
Understand what other people are doing and
Yep.
ask lots of questions. Don't be scared to offer ideas as well, because when I started at Barnes, they were very supportive of me on that side of things, and some ideas I came out with good, and I had a supportive site manager who goes, right, let's do it. I've been in. I also had some terrible ideas as well, and he would say, "Have you thought about that?" And you go, "Oh, actually." But it's no, it's that was that was really helped me with a much more rounded knowledge and experience.